having a wee look at both guys, and between the two of them, we've got 25 first-round finishes. So I think this is going to be a blinker. Don't go to the toilet or don't go for a beer when this fight's on, because you're going to miss it. But as far as the statistics are concerned,
it's a good shout, mate.
Yeah, and I don't see it going to the judges either, because they've got a hell of a lot of finishes too. They've got something like 34 finishes between the two of them. So I can imagine this one's just going to be an in and out shift for the two of them. But in terms of title implications, I don't think a win over the number 14 guy is going to get him a title shot. I think he's maybe 3 fights away for that. Certainly 2, and we could even use. I think one of the points I put to Gunnar was that when Bisping headlined Glasgow, it set him on the road to his belt. 2 fights later, he's a champion. I know he get a wee bit of accelerated chance there due to injury.
Sure, but he took that chance. Yeah,
but he took the chance and he won the belt. But my point was, like, the inspiration is here. Let's use that as a catalyst.
Yes,
in the hydro, get this one out the road. Another performance tonight, even another spectacular finish, and then let's look at somebody in the top 5. If you finish that guy fairly easily, then you can start arguing for a title shot. But I think the only way Gunnar loses this one is the old-fashioned puncher's chance.
Yep. And I think that's a fair point, mate, and no arguments from me. But let's move to the final part of the show, and it's my favourite, answering fan questions. I've got a couple in from Twitter this week. So I'll just remind you guys of the one rule. The floor is yours. You don't have to wait your turn. I'll just throw them out and you answer them if you wish, guys. So to Twitter, @else4elf tweeted to say, Paul Craig versus Stevie Ray at a catchweight 190. Could it be done?
No, it could not be done. It could not be done. I remember a couple of years back, I don't know how Paul Craig didn't beat my ass when I said this, but we were theoretically talking about this on a previous podcast I used to be involved in. And I said that I could see Stevie Ray ragdolling Paul Craig around the gym like an empty tracksuit or something along those lines. And Paul Craig, to be fair to him, when he saw me next, just kind of gave me a wee half cuddle and looked at me as if to say, yeah, it's Stef. Like he was not happy with me saying that. And that was, and then all of a sudden Paul Craig's career just went on a massive trajectory, and he's now in the UFC, and I certainly wouldn't make a claim like that anymore. But no, it can't happen. It's silly. And why would we want it to? These are two guys who want to keep doing great things in the UFC, hopefully.
I think that's the key point there, is why would we want it to? I know these guys have had their own wee sort of personal issues back in the day, but everybody's now in the UFC. I think we need to move on for that. And I have heard Stevie saying Paul's apologised, but I think we need to have our UFC level fighters at least looking like a united front for the sport here. I don't think we should be pushing for 2 guys. We've only got 4 guys in the UFC at the moment. I don't think we should be trying to make enemies out of both of them. I think we should be trying to get more in and have these guys inspiring the next generation to come through, whoever that may be. So no, I don't think we should. It's typical sort of British or Scottish mentality. We never really celebrate our own. We're always putting our own down. We're always looking abroad. Even in football, it's like, rather than get the guy through the academy, it's like let's sign somebody with a foreign name and he'll be better. We should be celebrating the fact that we've got 4 fighters in the UFC, and let's look to try and get more in there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's move on. We've got Attorney Conrad tweeted us by saying Felder wins by sweet KO, setting up Felder versus Gaethje at #UFC 219 in December. Make it happen, UFC.
I don't see that.
No.
But Gaethje, Felder. What's Felder's rank? 37th in there, I think.
He's way down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're buying that one.
Holy shit! I didn't realise he was ranked as poorly as that.
Yeah, but I think he didn't have a skid or anything, but he's looked good recently. I think he is ready to make that jump up the rankings. But
it's also the division he's in. I mean, the lightweight division in the UFC is probably the most stacked, I think, out of all of them. You compare that to something like heavyweight, it pales in comparison. You're talking about 155 is the deepest one, I think, of all.
Okay, you start hitting the 30s and 20s, and you see the big names in that division. You're thinking, this guy's sitting here. You'd think he was a lot higher. Just that division is pretty stacked.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take one more from Twitter, guys, before we wrap up. At AKA Cunningham tweeted to say, UFC Glasgow, aye, very good. Where was Peter Quealy, Robert Whiteford? I love Gunny and Jojo, but come on to fuck, where's the showstopper? Isn't that Shawn Michaels?
Yeah, so I've saw the campaign all over Twitter for Whiteford.
I think, listen, if it was a straight decision between Whiteford and Danny Henry, I don't think anyone could argue that Danny Henry gets his chance. I think Whiteford, we spoke about this briefly off air before we started. He had his chance. He had a brilliant night in Glasgow. It was something we'll never forget. He'll never forget, and he should never forget it. And, he's a guy that I have huge love for what he's achieved and for being the first Scot to fight in the UFC. However, I think hopefully he does get a chance in the future, but no, I don't think there was a case this time. And certainly not with Danny Henry lurking in the wings. All he's done at EFC, he's earned his shot. And no
100%. I think it's got to be Danny over anybody, including Robert. And I think if I was Robert, quite frankly, I wouldn't want to fight in the Hydro again, because the height he hit last time, the spectacular knockout, the cage jump, the Flower of Scotland, and the way the fans all reacted.
Yeah.
How can you improve on that? I think the only thing you can do is go out there and risk losing, or going to a decision or something. I don't think you're going to go out and have a repeat. You're certainly not going to go out and better it. So I think he should leave that as the legacy of his UFC career in a real high point in his MMA career. And I think if he does get a call back, and I hope he does, because we want to see Scottish fighters in there, as we just said. But I think it would be, if I was him, I know he's caught up in the whole sort of emotion of the fact that it's back and he wants a piece of the action again and things like that. But I think after the dust settles, his legacy should be that UFC one. And if he does get a call back up, it would be somewhere else in another event in another city somewhere else.
I appreciate what you're saying about legacy, and I'd like to just play devil's advocate on this one with you, Tom. But I know what you're saying. Well, it should probably be Danny Henry over Stevie Ray, and then that's fine. But I don't get why it has to be one or the other. To me, quite frankly, I don't see what harm it would have done adding a guy like Robert Whiteford to this card. It was fantastic last time around. This one hasn't sold out the way the last UFC Glasgow did. And another brutally honest point is, quite frankly, it's not got the names that the last one did in terms of like a Bisping and whatever. So I don't really see what was wrong with maybe adding a Robert Whiteford to this. What do you think, mate?
Well, I get your point as well. I mean, I think if we're only going to have the 12 fights, then I think, or the four Scottish. I mean, Danny was elite. I think if there was, up until a few weeks ago, we only had the 3, and I think those guys were always going to be the 3 that get the nod over Robert. Mm-hmm. There obviously was a space came in. Danny, 2-time EFC champion, he's coming through. He's starting to build a career, so I think it's got to be him. But I don't know if the place, if Robert was added, that it would go and sell out instantly. I'm not saying that, but I don't think it would have made it any worse, is what I'm saying. No, it wouldn't have made it any worse, but at the same time, I think it would just have been for nostalgia's sake that he was there, rather than what kind of career is he going to have in the UFC now? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It could be great. It might not be, but I think if I was him, I'm just saying, if I was him, I would want to leave that memory of UFC 1 intact without potentially tarnishing it, having another shot in the Hydro and potentially getting beat. He's a couple of years older again and things like that. Yeah. So that was just sort of my opinion. But in terms of it was a good point you made there in terms of ticket sales. I wonder how much of a factor a Sunday night is playing this time. Last time it was a Saturday.
That's true.
What Scots are like. We'll go and we'll have a party and we'll have a night out with boys and we'll get drunk. But we're all at work in the Monday morning, so I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know how much of a factor that was.
That's true.
I was looking for something. The lineup today, and I clicked the wrong link and it took me to a website selling tickets, and it said there was 232 or something left, but I don't know if that was just that website's allocation or the allocation for the arena, but I still imagine it'll be pretty busy.
Yeah, that'll be that website's allocation, but
yeah,
definitely. But I think it'll be pretty busy, man. Sunday night doesn't help. Clearly, Sunday night, no doubt about it. But what you're both saying is really interesting. Hearing you both talk about Whitefoot and whether maybe his legacy should. I don't know if I entirely agree with Tom there, but because I just think he's still got something to offer. But for this card, I think the right call has been made. I don't think it would have been right. And if he had fought in this card and lost, I think then his legacy would have been tarnished in the eyes of MMA fans. And I also don't think him being there would have made much difference to ticket sales either, really. I just don't. I think the fact is that other than the Scottish fighters, it's not the strongest card, and that is probably why. Yeah, that's probably why the tickets aren't selling greatly.
Well, there you go, Robert Whiteford. I've stuck up for you again, even though you keep turning me down on the podcast. So you kind of say I've no tried, guys. But there we go. That's another week wrapped up here on the Roundtable. I just want to extend my thanks to the panel here of Don Wilson of Fight Talk Scotland. Thanks very much for your time, mate.
Thanks for having me again.
To Tom Heffernan of the Daily Record, thank you very much for your time on the show, sir.
Thank you, John, and sorry about my dodgy Wi-Fi.
Keep dipping into the neighbour's Wi-Fi, mate. That's it. Finally, Stef and Lach, Scottish MMA Journal. Thank you once again for your time, sir.
Thanks, lovely to speak to all you guys. Nice one, and let's hope Sunday goes well.
We'll be back later this week where we'll be speaking to the fighters for Sunday's card, including Paul Craig, Gunnar Nelson, Brett Johns and Stevie effing Ray. In the meantime, thanks for those listening live on Spreaker. If you're catching up on iTunes, subscribe, facebook.com/martialartschat, and follow me on Twitter @martialartschat. I'm John Boy McElroy, and I'll catch you again soon on the Martial Arts Chat podcast.